Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be discussing the Sesame Street autism character Julia and what I kind of think about it all. Coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to the Aspie world. My name is Dan. I have autism, ADHD, OCD and dyslexia. I make weekly videos on this type of content. So if you're new around here and you'd like to learn more, remember to hit that subscribe button by clicking the notification bell. And if you're watching over on Facebook, be sure to give this page a like and a follow to see daily videos from me. Oh man, this is awesome. I've wanted to do this video for ages, for a while actually, because I've been looking at different things about different characters in TV and movies. And as you guys know, I did a video on TV show characters like Sheldon Cooper and Abed from Community, and I'll put a link to those in the card above here so you guys can see those and down below. But in terms of like actual characters in kids TV shows, there's one called Pablo on the BBC, which is kind of really cool, and I've done some work with Pablo before. But one that really interested me was the Sesame Street character of Julia. Now, Sesame Street has been around from the dawn of time. Since as long as I can remember, Sesame Street has been going. Like, it's a kids' TV show, huge. I used to watch it when I was a kid. I really loved it when I was a kid, and I kind of still really do enjoy watching it. And it reminds me of a new show that we watch called Helpsters, what we watch on Apple TV. But my son loves Helpsters, and he also loves Sesame Street, so it's nice to be back in there watching those shows with him again. But I wanted to talk about Julia, because recently, in the last kind of 2 years, they introduced a new character called Julia into the show. Now, Julia is an autistic girl living with her parents on Sesame Street, and they basically go over her interactions with all the people. Now, when she's first introduced into the show, she's just playing with the other kids, but doing stuff like drawing, and they talk about things like hyperfocus and the fact that Julia doesn't really talk back to people when they ask for specific requests. And there's different parts where Julia's normally with, when she was first introduced to the show, she was normally with another actor character, which wasn't a puppet, kind of like a responsible adult kind of figure in the show. And what happened, and I found this quite interesting, is Julia would do something, and so Big Bird wanted to give her a high five, and she didn't high five Big Bird because he was like, hey, high five Julia, but she just went her the other way and didn't do, the high five, did her own thing. So Big Bird was kind of put off by this, and he said, oh, why does Julia not like me? And then the guy was like, no, she does. She just needs warming up to you, and she doesn't really understand, that you need a high five at that moment in time, but it's nothing major, don't worry about it. She'll come around and it'll be fine. And then so later on in the episode, Julia is laughing because Big Bird is down below and he's tiny, and she's like stood up a tall, and so he looks small, and she's like, it's funny how his name is Big Bird and he's actually small from my vision, which is amazing. And then she gets him a flower and they all make up friends. That is very interesting because it shows you that like when an autistic person is focusing on something, it doesn't mean that like they hate anybody or they disrespect anyone or don't like them. It just means that they're currently occupied and their brain is focusing on something else, which is very, very interesting, because to see that shown to children so children can understand that, it's just amazing. Because we have to remember that shows like this are so influential for kids, because a lot of kids watch the show and love it. Now, if your kid's going to a school and there happens to be an autistic person in that school, you don't want your kid to kind of think anything less of them, like they're any less of a person, because that's absolutely not true. It's just that they have additional needs in a certain aspect of their life, and that needs to be portrayed in a good, decent, clean, ethical manner. And I think Sesame Street did that really well in terms of explaining some of the things. Now, there is another one where Julia's playing around and she's flapping her hands, like, she's stimming because she's excited or worried or nervous. And I've done a video on stimming all about this, and if you're not familiar with stimming, I'll try and leave a video in a link above here and down below so that you guys can see where I talk about stimming and what hand flapping is. And so it's something that happens when you're an autistic person who is maybe a bit anxious or really happy and excited, that you'll flap your hands because it's a way of getting energy out, and also it's a way of self-stimulatory behavior, which is where the word stimming comes from. Now, Julie displays this quite a lot in the the beginning of the show when she first introduced, and a lot of the characters are asking, hey, why is she doing that with her hands? And then the guy says, oh, she's just doing it because she's excited. So now the other people say, okay, well, why don't we join in and we can flap about? And then Big Bird said, hey, I flap because I got wings, and it's kind of cool. So they have some kind of relationship between the fact that they're will flap, and showing that in a very basic term and explaining that to kids in a very simple manner, it's just amazing. Like, that to me is just perfect. It's perfect for what it needed to be done. It's perfect for Julia, you know, to be in there doing those things, because it's showing kids, okay, not every single kid with an autism spectrum condition diagnosis is going to flap their hands, but at the end of the day, lots of them do. Most of the ones that I know do, and you know, it's something that it needs to be shown, and that being shown in Sesame Street is a great example of how we can bridge those gaps. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Julia's speech, because they show a lot of kind of like her behaviours and stuff, and she lives with her mum and a brother and a dad, and I think they've got a dog as well, and they show different types of her you know, interacting with different people in different ways. So when they try to talk to her, she doesn't form full sentences, kind of like, you know, how you'd expect a typical character on the show to form a full sentence. She just says things like, hey Julia, you know, do you want to go and play over here? And she says play, and then she'll go over and play, and then like she's at home with her mum, and her mum says, hey Julia, have you packed a bag? And she picks a bag up and says bag, because what they're trying to portray there is that Julia understands exactly what they're asking, but she may not be able to verbally communicate in perfect, you know, vocabulary English or vocabulary sentence structures what she wants to say. She'll just kind of say different words of it, and this is very common with people on the spectrum, because as you know, autism is a spectrum, and there's people all over it with different kind of support needs and etc. And I can verbally communicate, I think, pretty well. I'm dyslexic as well, so it does have an issue when I'm trying to type and spell and read. But in terms of talking, I'm pretty good at talking, obviously, as you guys know, because you watch my channel and I talk all the time. But for Julia, you know, talking is a big issue. It's a difficult thing, and it's portrayed in the show like that. Now, I think that this being a staple in the show, showing a character on the spectrum and it being a puppet, not just like, you know, an actor playing an autistic person, is groundbreaking. Because up until this point, we have seen people with disabilities on TV shows, like with wheelchair users or people who, you know, maybe amputees and stuff. Those people have been in cartoons and kids shows for a while now. Maybe the past 10 years, we've seen an increase of those, which is fantastic, because obviously it's needed, because that shows a real reflection of people in life. But one thing that was lacking was always autism. Sometimes you'd have like an ADHD kind of thing going on, but there was nobody really showing autism. I think that Sesame Street has gone above and beyond with trying to portray this in a very fair and an honest manner, and I don't know if they're getting a lot of hate for this and slack for this, because I think anybody who does anything in the media to do with autism will get, you know, slack from somebody and get some kind of like hatred thrown at them for something, because, you know, you're never going to please everybody. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like we either work with shows like Sesame Street to implement characters like Julia and have more of those things going on, or we don't have any at all. So we really do have to focus on, like, how do we get Julia's character to be stronger? Like, what things can we implement there? Well, we could always write in suggestions to Sesame Street, and I think it's great. Now, following on from a trend from that, we also saw releases of shows like Atypical on Netflix. We also saw people in The Big Bang Theory like Sheldon Cooper, and also Abed from the TV show Community, who all display autism spectrum conditions. And obviously The Good Doctor, you know, an autistic guy in that show is like the main character, which I haven't seen yet, and I will be doing a review kind of like this on The Good Doctor very soon. And I'm also going to be talking about Drax from the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, because Drax also displays a lot of kind of typical characteristics of somebody on the autism spectrum, and I want to go over that and address it, because I've had a lot of people talking about it. But what I'm trying to say is that moving forward, all the advocacy we're doing, all those things, we're seeing more and more autistic awareness and autism understanding put into Hollywood and into those big productions, into those TV shows on like prime television, because it's helping bridge that gap. It's getting people to understand, you know. So now kids who are watching Sesame Street, if they go to a playground or they go to like a play center or they go to school and there happens to be an autistic kid in their school or in their playground or whatever, they're going to have some like camaraderie with them. They're going to understand exactly what they're going through because they're watching Sesame Street. They're going to have a little bit more understanding, and they're going to be way more just accepting of that person, because, you know, when you have something that someone's never seen before or experienced before, they can react in different ways. They could act surprised, they could act shocked, they could ask questions that may be insensitive. You know, kids are just harmless. They're not trying to be insensitive, but they may just do that because that's all they know, is just to ask straightforward questions. And it's stuff like that to me which is just amazing, and I think that Sesame Street did a great job of it, and I just think that it was just fantastic. Let me know in the comments down below if you've actually seen this show with Julia in it, or if it's something that I'm just highlighting to you and you want to go check it out. I'd love to have that discussion with you. Please leave it in a comment down below, because I read and respond to every single comment about that. But I think Sesame Street's doing a great job. Having her as a main character and a constant character on the show, fantastic. It shows that there are different levels of different types of people all over the world that do different things, and more of that is needed. Also, if you think this video can help somebody understand stuff and maybe interested in checking out Julia, please share this video on Facebook and Twitter, because it helps me out and it helps those people out, which is amazing. If you want to support this channel, please do so on patreon.com/the Aspie World. I will leave a link down below for anybody watching this on the video, so you can actually check out the Patreon page to support this channel, because we're going through some tough times. COVID has hit everybody really, really hard, and yeah, it's a difficult time. So if you want to help support the channel, I'd be forever grateful. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button and see my next video, which is around me here, and I'll see you next time, guys. Peace.